Hello there, it's me, Steve Meller, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high-performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. My guest today is Mark Scherer, the founder and CEO of Encompass Life, where through the practice of consciousness, Mark is able to help people see the power of doing the work to find fulfillment in their lives. And it all starts with his passion for improving himself. Welcome to this episode of Growth Ready, and we welcome in Mark Scherer to the show today. Mark, how are we doing?
Doing great, sir. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful, and folks won't know, but we've had a host of technical issues, but all that matters is that we're recording now, and we're going to have a great conversation. But Mark, before we go any further, I want to ask you the question that we're asking everybody as we open up every interview. When you look at your life and when you look at the work you do today, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Well, I'm a big proponent of luck. And what I mean by luck is build it as if you already have it. Build infrastructure. Really get your infrastructure in place. Get your offer in place. Build everything as if luck has already welcomed you in. And then what happens is luck begins to show up. But you got to be ready for it to show up.
I love that. So, again, people are going to hear this notion of luck and say, "Oh, hang on, you telling me I'm going to sit down and just keep my fingers crossed and hope that everything works out the way it is?" But what I'm hearing fresh off the bat here, Mark, is that there is this notion that, hey, if we build our world, if we build our organization, if we build our life in a way that can be almost, we can create this way of almost bringing it in, like attracting the luck towards us because things are prepared for that to happen. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir. And for me, it became me building myself as if I was already this person who had this successful company. You know, what characteristics do I have? What characteristics does my company have? What do I love hearing about what my clients are saying? And then operate as if all that's already happening, and then all of a sudden lucky things begin to happen.
I love it. And you speak about envisioning that successful business. Encompass Life is that business that you are the founder of, that you are the owner of today. And instead of me trying to maybe provide our listeners a good insight or what the website tells me Encompass Life does, I'd love for you just to share with our listeners the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, so we're I guess you can say, life coaching company, but we also do leadership development as well. So we work with a lot of business owners, and to get them through that glass ceiling. A lot of times people will cap out at a certain level, and they may hit that area that put a lot of effort in, a lot of work in, and hit that first level of success or whatever level of success they're at, and then all of a sudden they kind of start to cap out. So what we're doing here is we have a system that provides breakthrough results very, very quickly. One of our classes we do is called From How to Wow, and a lot of people have great ideas, but they get stuck in the monkey mindset of how to implement them. And so what this does, it breaks through that monkey mindset or that how am I going to do it in a matter of seconds. And it's a replicable process where you can teach your organization to do it. And it's a very, very different way of thinking, very different way of accessing information.
I love it. And we've been talking for just a couple minutes, and there's two things already that I am just so curious and adamant about going further with in that idea of building that foundation for luck to become something that comes your way. But in addition to that, getting people, almost what I'm hearing is that notion of being stuck, that like when you're stuck in that how mindset, how, you just kind of sit there and you maybe got the whiteboard, you've got you got your computer in front of you, and for whatever reason, you just can't get out of how. And you're telling us not only do you help people get out of how, but you also get them to that point of fulfillment, of true optimization when they get to the wow as well.
Yep.
But before we get to that, let's talk about this look, and it's why I love asking the question that I ask on the front end.
You do great at it too, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I just appreciate that here you are telling us that there is a foundation, there is a blueprint, if you will, in this world that we can create for ourselves that leaves us more open to the possibility of luck coming our way. So let's maybe rewind a little bit to begin with. Talk to me about how you maybe learned this lesson through the course of your life.
Probably failed more times than other people have even tried.
Love to learn more about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've had numerous companies. Some of them do really well, and then screw up, and make money, lose money, ups and downs, up and down. Very exciting life, Steve. Very exciting, like a roller coaster. Ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns. One thing that was common with all my companies I worked with or I owned is I was always looking to improve myself. So I was really passionate about personal growth and taking classes in consciousness and what consciousness actually was and how we could, like I say, I guess let's talk about the luck. How we could become that person who was really lucky. I knew people who were really lucky in business. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of time they were shitty in relationships. So like their luck would be in business, but their bad luck would be in relationships. And I was like, what's the difference between the good luck and the bad luck? So I have studied consciousness for about 35 years, and I started putting this system together over the last 15 years. And as I've done so, I've worked with thousands of people, and as well as myself, going through finding these hacks, I guess you could say,
sure,
that really can make things fast, fun, and easy to shift the mindset. Most people think that they got to think positive thoughts and don't think negative thoughts, and that's kind of the common modality of what's going on. Whenever I started doing that, I just had one more voice in my head, dude. One more voice. Like, okay, am I thinking positive or am I thinking negative right now? And it was, it was wearing me out. So I said, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And over the last 15 years, I just found a really simple way to do it.
It's such an interesting insight when you talk about, we can sometimes become our own worst enemy with some of this work. When you start, you're over-reading, you're over-educating yourself, you're exposing yourself to every single philosophy known to man when it comes to what it means to be positive, what it means to avoid negativity. And then there you were giving us that great example of, hey, suddenly now I've got this other person in my head just constantly, am I positive, am I negative? Am I positive, am I negative? And now I'm irritated by that person, so I'm definitely not positive. And so it's just like that. But that's a real truth. That's a real truth, Mark, in this day and age, especially when we are so exposed to, like, got my phone in my hand here. Every person who's like, hey, how do I become more positive? Well, let me look at the most, the people that can teach me the most on that, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or whatever it may be. And suddenly now that person is overwhelmed with 20 different ways that you're supposed to be positive. Has that really helped the person? Like, are you really helping yourself when you're over-educating yourself to that extent?
No.
So I'm hearing a lot of that from this.
And most people, or a lot of people who become successful, they came from really tough backgrounds, and they have that tough background gave them that drive to be, I'm not going to live the life I was raised as a kid. I'm not going to live in poverty, And then I'm going to do something different with my life. And so they've tried really, really hard to excel, and maybe they've reached a certain level of excellence, but they've reached it from a place of anger, resentment, or frustration of where they were raised. And a lot of times the chaos of the childhood begins to, even they become successful, they still have that chaos, and there's still the voices in their head, and no matter what they do, it's still not good enough, and it's still not enough. So they may have money in the bank, but they're still miserable. They may be manifesting things, but they're never really fulfilled. And I guess that childhood pain, a lot of people think that it's that pain should be replaced by pleasures. And I was on that road for a while. Bigger house, bigger boat, bigger things, but those it was never really like I would hit something, but it was like that's it. Like so, what's next? So I doing all this work now. I've been able to find out that all that chaos and pain is really replaced with peace.
Hmm.
And when you can actually have peace up in the noggin, everything just falls into place with ease. Kind of being peace in the eye of the storm. So this book that talks about that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think something right away that I think can be really important here is as we start to get onto other terms like peace and the way in which we manage maybe overwhelm that can come from all this different things and the positives and negatives. You know, the executive coach in me is almost now coming back and chiming in a little bit here and thinking, okay, we've used this word luck from the outset. I would love for you to actually just maybe define that a little bit more to us in the sense of, because some people may hear that and think, complete, what is fortune or what is just completely random or anything like that. And I think that's really important at this juncture, just to sort of say, when you talk about creating this environment for yourself, whether it be through this foundation of peace in a mental standpoint or this foundation of strategy when it comes to your business and operations and things like that, for you to then be able to attract luck into it. What would you maybe mean by that? How would you define that notion of luck?
Peace or which specifically?
No, the look part of it. Like when you talk about, hey, attracting look and saying,
Oh,
hey,
attracting luck. I hear
yeah,
you. I
yeah,
thought you said attracting luck. Pardon me.
yeah, no, no,
Attracting
no.
luck. Yeah.
It's the
So
accent. It's just the accent. That's all.
yeah. So it used to come from. I used to get really excited about when I hit this particular plateau. Things were going to be way different inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my inside was all based on what I would manifest in my life. So where I was manifesting from was a place of want, which people, well, great to manifest from want, sorta, but the word want means to desire without ever having.
Hmm.
So whatever that feeling, that frustration is when somebody has a big want in their life, it's tainting the manifestation. So when they experience the results of it, that manifestation still has that frustration in it.
Mm.
So there's a way to have luck show up with by giving yourself the feeling of already being fulfilled even before you begin to name what it is you choose to have.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, it's going to be trying to visualize something rather than being able to see something from a new chemical cocktail in your body.
Gotcha.
Change the chemistry first before you look for your direction, before you look for your result.
Hmm. So that's certainly an interesting way of describing it, which is why I'm now glad that I asked, because I think a lot of people will hear a term like luck and assume like, hey, I put $10 down on this blackjack table and look came along and I kept winning money over and over. But you're talking more about this, like the wants and the desires that we get in life. And a lot of
Yeah,
the time people will say like, hey, when I come into a whole bunch of money, that was luck. Or when my business hits this certain level, that was a whole bunch of luck.
yeah, bad luck, good luck,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm hearing that come through here, and I think just to even go take it a step internally, like you said, like, hey, do you know your values? Do you know your wants? Do you know what it is that's going to truly fulfill you? Because at the end of the day, how can you know whether it's for like good
Yeah,
fortune or bad fortune if you're not really sure deep down what it
yeah,
is you want?
sort of. You were saying you were looking for something to truly fulfill you. What I'm saying is give yourself the feeling of being fully fulfilled before you get the vision, before you
Mm,
to even begin to try to figure out what it is that's going to fulfill you.
mm.
So it's a little bit similar, but different little nuance.
Yeah.
It's like before I'll put my feet up on my desk and I'll give myself the feeling, oh yeah, baby, that's it. Even though I don't have a clue of what it is that I'm looking for is yet.
Yeah.
Just give it to your body, have it go to deep relaxation. Some people can do it in meditation, I guess,
Hmm.
but there's a way to just live in it,
Yeah.
and that's when things start getting really lucky.
Hmm.
When everything in the mind goes quiet, And instead of thinking, strategizing, all that, it's just there's a instead of visualizing, there's a you can see this beautiful vision of yourself of whatever this result is for you, and it's greater than most people can mentally do
Mm.
because you have to change the chemistry in your brain before you can access the new memory.
Mm.
So it's a really different process, Steve. I mean, I've discovered this over really, I guess, about the last 8 years. And I've done a lot of studying. I've read about stuff like this, but being able to actually consistently do it was very, very different.
And how is like incorporating this into your world? How has this served your own? Let's just talk more from a personal standpoint. Like, how has this served more from a personal growth? Like when you think about the way you've grown in this time and through this journey of implementing this kind of
Yeah,
process and
thanks.
work.
Yeah, it comes from, I was saying, I used to be pissed at life.
Mm-hmm.
Tough childhood, had a lot of anger, resentment. Um, I didn't believe I had it, but people around me said, "Oh yeah, oh yeah."
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of health issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got into a pretty serious accident, couldn't walk, and that was a very humbling moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to so I did a lot of introspection, and I've been been studying a lot of classes, but I was still up and down, up and down, up and down. So when that last time the accident I had where I couldn't walk for a while, that was I was able to I had a lot of pain going on too. So I was able to experience the pain, and it quieted my head down because all I could hear in there was pain.
Yeah.
And so as the pain began to leave, I began to notice I had room in my head, so I began to choose what I was allowing back in. And that was really big. And then I started noticing um, to be able to just ask questions and get an immediate response. That was a really ineffective action. Instead of going into a reaction and maybe shutting down or lashing out, to be able to stay in effective action. Intuition starts to grow, and my effectiveness as a coach began to grow, and also my business began to really, really take off. I was doing other businesses at the time, and I was just doing coaching on the side because people were hearing about the results were being produced. I got clients all over the world with no website, no
Mm-hmm.
anything. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I had clients who were asking me where could they learn to do what I'm doing. So I started a university to start training people.
Mm.
Um,
It's that insight of just making room, making room for the
yeah.
reflection, making room for the ability to maybe not just assume that you've either got the answer or that the first answer is going to be the right answer, to
Mm-hmm.
actually ask a question internally and maybe even ask a question off the back of that question. And to your point,
Mm-hmm.
this is how we develop traits such as intuition. Like intuition is really one's ability to almost be asking questions of what's going on around you or what's
Everywhere.
happening right in
Yeah.
front of you, almost unbeknownst to yourself, right? Like you're doing it almost autonomously of just like, hey, I have my senses are telling me to be curious right now and to
Mm-hmm.
step into this situation with this individual right now, and you were able to truly develop that ability. And as a coach, and as a coach myself, I can tell you intuition and things like that are certainly things that you want to be able to acquire when you're in this
Mm-hmm.
space. But to hear that you've done it in a way where it came with that significant adversity that forced you to stop
Mm-hmm.
in every sense of the word stop, to allow you then to create this space to see and to hear in ways unlike ever before.
Mm-hmm.
Like how are you using that very experience of yours in the work that you're doing today with your clients?
So so this there we systematized how for people to actuate their intuition.
Mm,
So you don't have to go through what I went through,
sure.
and what I mean, everything we do is based in scriptures. It's not something
Hmm.
but it's in quantum physics and metaphysics as well. Um, but one of the things is asking you shall receive. Well, most people are asking really stupid questions and getting answers to really stupid questions they hate. Most people, what I've noticed is leading classes, if I ask somebody what don't they like about their life, people can't wait to share.
Mm.
I mean, like, just give me three things. No one wants to stop at three. They can't wait to get a chance to talk.
Yeah.
So everyone's competing upon what they hate in their life, and they're wired, and they have their brain wired to do so. And after I'd ask that question, I would speak for a while, and about an hour later, I'd ask, "So, what do you love about life?" No one wanted to say a thing, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's beginning to shift that programming or having the brain fire in a different way, so it begins to receive new information. But they have to ask different questions. Most people will go, "Why do I keep screwing up?" And when they ask that question, the subconscious bombards the conscious mind with a whole bunch of answers to that question. And since they ask that question from a place of hate or frustration, the answers they're coming in have a lot of anger, resentment, or frustration in the answer. It's like, dude, you're getting exactly what you're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Change, and it just takes it takes a little shift to get people to make that shift about themselves. It's what I found out is what limits somebody the most is what they hate the most about themselves,
Mm.
and also what they defend the most. And
Mm.
I'm guilty of that too.
Oh, me
I
too.
have, being the head coach here, one of the things I have a whole team of coaches, so my coaches have permission to coach me carte blanche. I mean, you see something, you coach me. If I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be a good coach, I better be coachable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can tell with those, if they say something and I get that little reaction, that's when I know there's the biggest benefit for me right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, amen to that. I can't. I mean, I'm losing count, sadly, in our world of the amount of coaches I'll meet and ask them, who they have as their coach or who's coaching them, and too many times people are telling me they're not being coached, and it's like, well, it's well, I think for me, it's so important as coaches that we're very coachable, but
Yeah.
not to make this about coaching, but so for me, I really want to just step into that insight there around really just asking better questions, right? I mean, just
Yeah.
asking truly beneficial questions that are going to allow for beneficial insights and responses, because it's something that does come up a lot in my life in my work, and I see it all the time. Is that if we're going to ask the wrong questions and then we're going to actually respond to those responses, really we're not actually resolving the situation, because we're creating issues for ourselves in the poorness of the questions themselves, and then we're getting pissed at the fact that what's coming out of those bad questions is not what we want to hear. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, we're the ones that are the catalyst behind the bad situation in the first place if we allow ourselves. So, but just to shift this into the positive, and to really make this what this show is about, is giving people some form of blueprint towards growth, and believing that they're ready for growth. Clearly growth comes from that desire to ask questions, not just asking questions, but the actual desire to ask better questions. So I'm just
Right.
curious, just from your experience, what are you seeing in your world, and what would you maybe recommend to people to get better at the willingness to ask better questions?
Well, first that you got to do is start changing the language.
Mm.
Um, Instead of using the positive and negative conversations that most everybody else is using, that's one thing we've flushed here.
Mm.
Everything we do here is based on actions and results, not positive and negative, good, bad, right, or wrong, any of that stuff. Um, that positive and negative is this duality consciousness, and when somebody is in the duality consciousness, there's four things that keep a pattern stuck into place: shame, blame, guilt, and hate. And so when they're speaking about positive and negative, if they're being there's always that tinge of hate and guilt and shame associated with if they do something wrong. So you got to flush that out. Um, and instead of doing, I used to even say actions and consequences, but even the word consequences has that little tinge of to it, right?
Mm.
So it's just actions and results. What results you're producing in your life, what actions are you taking, what results do you choose to produce in your life, and instead of trying to figure out the how, Give yourself the feeling of it, and then remember what you did to do it. One of the biggest things you can do to shift your world is to quit speaking the word not and only start speaking what you love. With somebody speaking the word not, there's a direct correlation between the word not and anxiety. So it puts the person into a state of fight or flight. And that's the language of separation and duality. I am or I am not, right? So when they're speaking that I am not language, it's also a sign of suppressed anger or resentment. And so somebody having that is manifesting through that filter of anger and resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to, I mean, the proverbial story of like Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong, they believed they were separate from life, separate from God. Right. And it's impossible to be separate from life. So anytime you're making life wrong, there's that separation factor going in. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, you become a victim in your life.
There's a great deal. There's a theme here of just respecting how delicate all of this is, because mm-hmm. We're talking about one word here and one word there, and that mm-hmm. one word can be so catastrophic in so many ways.
Yeah.
And we use it as though it doesn't have that kind of magnitude around it. We allow ourselves to speak in ways, and again, I say we because I'm guilty of it. I'm a father of a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, for crying out loud. Like I have bad days. I have great days. Trust me. Holy Lord, do I have some great days. But for every one of those, there's typically a pretty bad one coming too, where nobody wants to listen, nobody wants to obey, everything's difficult, all this kind of stuff. And you can't help but look at your wife and your spouse in that moment and just say, hey, this isn't working. I can't do this. I don't know what to do. Like you're getting into that space straight away, and there's no other way of defining it other than this victim mindset, Mark, that you're speaking to. Mm-hmm. And we're just human in that regard. However, to simply put a value on it in terms of the magnitude of it immediately forces us to do this work that you're talking about, to stop and to reflect and to make space. And the fact that I can even speak about it the way I am speaking about it with you now is my way of saying, hey, these are the conversations we can have. We can mm-hmm. talk about, hey, I was guilty of doing it over here. How can I do it better? How can I start doing this better? How can I maybe look at this differently? And I'm just curious how you look at those moments too.
Or now that I've already made the changes in my life, what's new and different for me? Instead of the how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? All that. Now that I already did it, and it's 3 years in the future, what's new and different for me? Yeah. And then what that does is it reprograms the subconscious in a matter of minutes. So instead of having to work on it and embody it and taking 3 weeks to create this new pattern shift, there's a way to reprogram the subconscious in a matter of minutes. And it works. I mean, it's so different than, as I said, normally to create a pattern shift, it takes 400 to 600 repetitions. Mm-hmm. That if you can do it with humor, it only takes 10 to 20. So one of the things we do is I love doing here is bringing humor to the situation and having somebody shift a pattern in a matter of seconds. Mm. What programs the subconscious is when our thoughts, words, and feelings align, and the greater the feelings the person is speaking, or greater the feelings the person is feeling when they speak, the faster the programming of the subconscious takes place. So most people have been speaking with a lot of feeling when they're pissed. Mm-hmm. That's when their feelings go way up. So if we can slow that person down and have them reprogram their subconscious with what they love and really feel it, it gets reprogrammed immediately, and they'll start taking brand new actions. Most of the time, they're not even aware they're taking the brand new actions until somebody calls their attention to it. So instead of trying to work hard to do it, it's instantaneous pattern shifts.
I love that.
Me too. I'm from Texas, Steve, and I like things fast, fun, and easy.
I mean, one of my favorite things to tell all my clients is like, hey, we're a complicated being, we humans. However, we do really well with simplicity. We are so good with simplicity, yet we are so terrible at establishing it and incorporating it into our worlds. And when we can find something, like you said, fast, easy, whatever it is, simple, we respond well to it. We act, and I loved as well the fact that you're able to bring it back all the way to that exterior affirmation as well, where people are actually looking and saying, "Hey, yeah, I see it in you. I see it in you. I feel it in you. I notice it in you. Like there's a way that you're going and carrying yourself now. You have an energy, a vibrance to you that you're shifting this stuff away, and you're bringing which means you're now making room for all this stuff over here, which is really going to to set you up and be in a much more positive state."
Yes, sir. Way easier. Lies are forever complex. Truth is simple. So find something. If something's really, really simple, there's got to be truth in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, before we wrap up here, Mark, I want to ask you this, because I think this is really important, because there's gonna be a lot of people listening to this and thinking, "Hey, man, this sounds great. This sounds great," and I just don't know whether I'm in a space in my life, in a place in my life right now, to where I can actually give this kind of thing its fullest attention, or be consistent with this kind of thing. What would you maybe tell someone to make them feel as though, hey, you are ready. You are ready to start doing this stuff.
Yep. I have people will say that frequently whenever they start. They go, "That sounds like it's going to be really, really hard." That's that little liar self telling you that it's going to be really, really hard to keep you stuck. As soon as somebody makes a shift, and sometimes it can take a few minutes to make the shift. I go, "Hey, would you like to go back to where you were 10 minutes ago?" "Oh no, why not? That was really hard. This is really easy." Yeah. So you got that little voice that's telling you things are hard, and personal growth has got to be tough and all that. The toughest thing, I guess, for somebody to do is to give up their identity. Is to shift their identity. Most people. Identity is created on complaints and excuses of why they couldn't have done something, or why things happened the way they did. So that's the toughest thing for somebody to give up. Once they begin to shift that, it gets really, really easy and fun.
Yeah, it's just something that comes through there, which is so encouraging. I want to believe to anyone listening is, we can be ready when we define what it is that's truly hard, not this limiting belief that we come into when you present this kind of work and you say, "Wow, that sounds like it's really difficult. It's really hard." I go back to my sports days of when I was coaching athletes, and you'd present them a workout and they go, "Gosh, coach, that looks so hard." I'm like, "Is it the hardest thing you've ever done?" Well, no, that was like, well, what are we talking about here? Why are we having this conversation about what's hard? Is it the hardest thing you've ever done? Yes or no? No, then let's giddy up and go. Let's do this thing. Well, what are we talking about here? So, and again, you're talking about that ability to use reflection and say, "Hey, what's brought me to this point where I am curious about incorporating this kind of work?" Well, it's because I've been going through a whole bunch of stuff that is really hard. That's truly hard. Life is kicking my butt, and you're giving me a way of resolving some of that, of working on some of that. Is that really hard? No, it's probably not hard. It's, again, that liar self. I love how you put it like that. Like, it's a voice, it's a story, it's a belief that, quite frankly, isn't built upon truth, and we have to work through those moments.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of coaches will say you got to get out of your comfort zone, and I think that's a misnomer. Because a lot of people they'll be struggling with money, struggling with their family, struggling with their health, and I go, "Are you really comfortable with this?" I said, "It's more like you're familiar with being miserable." And once they can, everybody says I got to get out of my comfort zone. So once they can actually name that they're actually in a state of misery and they're just familiar with being miserable, the shift pattern begins to occur really quick.
Yeah. And there's been a theme throughout this. It's the importance of words and labeling effectively, like to that point, like, you think you're just in a place of comfort because you're not maybe challenging yourself with some of this work that we're presenting, but the opposite is maybe misery. It's maybe discontent. It's maybe just lack of fulfillment. And that doesn't sound comfortable. That doesn't sound easy to me. And you're exactly right. It's another way that we can maybe just challenge some of the ways, some of the times we label, whether it be a specific word or a specific phrase, because it's too easy just to sort of lean on a phrase like that and say, "Oh, get uncomfortable, we'll get comfortable being uncomfortable," all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, you've probably been really comfortable being uncomfortable for a long time.
Exactly.
You know, you've actually
Yeah.
got a ton of experience in that.
Yeah.
So if you want to just lean on that for a moment, and then we can bring that into the present, maybe you're a
Yeah.
bit more open to this so-called, comfort with discomfort.
Yeah. And
Um,
everything either grows or dies.
right.
And to me, the pleasure in life is is the journey and watching the continual unfolding.
Mm.
Rather than when I hit this destination, that's when everything's going to be great. It's the journey that's beautiful and where the fulfillment is. It's not getting the yellow sports car and the blonde or whatever people desire to have in their life. It's those things. If you get those external things, they don't really have that fulfillment. But the fulfillment is beginning to understand how this relationship between thoughts, words, and feelings create reality, and being able to just be in the unfolding of it.
Well, what a great way to bring this to a close of just that kind of description around thoughts, words, and feelings, and how that can be a true way to define and pursue fulfillment. It's a wonderful thing. I think we can all be motivated by, that's for sure. And at the same time, Mark, I'm just so appreciative for the time, for the generosity of insight. I love having coaches come on the show. It's not every single show that we bring a coach on, and some people look at me and go, "You're a coach and you're bringing on other coaches? Like, is that not like some sort of weird way that we cross over businesses and all this kind of thing?" I'm like, no. Like these philosophies, these insights, everybody needs to hear these things, and no way of coaching is necessarily any more competitive or different to the way the other coach is doing it. But my point here is that bringing you on, allowing our listeners to get this insight, it's going to force a couple people to stop and maybe have that moment of reflection where they do quiet themselves just long enough to start asking some of these questions and allowing themselves to see themselves a bit differently. But brother, before I let you go, where can we learn more about you? Where can you send people that are interested to learn more?
Yeah, my website is encompasslife.com. You can email me at mark@encompasslife. Mention Steve if you come from here, please do, so I can call Steve up and send him a big old juicy hamburger or something. um, and I'll send you a link. We have a gift for people that you can put on there a gift for anybody who sees it, and I can send you that, and you can put
Hey,
that
man,
on.
everyone loves a gift. Everyone loves a gift. I'm
Yeah,
all about
everyone,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I love sharing this, and I really appreciate being on and your show. And this isn't a competitor. It's type of a thing. It's to me. Whenever I talk to somebody else, I get information from them, and I begin to incorporate it with what I'm doing. And there's like 7 billion people on the planet, so I think there's
Right.
enough for both of us, dude.
Yeah.
And,
I think the moment you and I decide that we've got it all figured out is the moment we probably become pretty bad coaches. And so, like, having other coaches come on from time to time helps me.
Yeah.
Listen, Mark, honestly, buddy, this has been wonderful. I'm glad we got around to doing this, and best of luck with everything in your world moving forward, man.
Thank you. You too, Steve. Blessings.
And my thanks again to Mark for joining us on the show. Plenty of insight, courtesy of Mark. Something that I really want to get to the heart of quickly here, though, as we finish, is the importance of asking good questions. Great questions, powerful questions, as I like to call it in my world as an executive coach. So my ask of you is to start asking better questions specific to your growth. Be curious, show an open-mindedness in the way you ask questions. Don't ask questions of yourself that are filled with some form of judgment, with some form of assumption. Make sure you're asking questions that allow you to move forwards, to take intentional action, steps in your growth process so that you can feel as though, through your questions, you're readying yourself for what comes with growth. Something that I notice all the time with my clients is that we can speak to ourselves in ways that cloud our judgment and hurt our perspective. So think about that. If your question seems critical, if it seems like an attack, then there's probably a better way you can frame that question. You can be kinder to yourself, because at the end of the day, you want great things for yourself. So you just criticizing yourself through the way you ask questions and being judgmental is not going to serve your growth. Can you do it in a way where you start to open your eyes to opportunities by asking better questions? So I look forward to maybe hearing from some of you in terms of how well you're able to practice this habit of strong, powerful, good questions that can serve your growth. But in the meantime, as you go through your growth journey, make sure you're continuing to come back and listen to the Growth Ready podcast. We are well and truly on our way with our rebrand, with the renaming of the show. I am so excited about not only the quality of the conversation so far, but the insanely impressive list of guests that we have coming up in the months to come. So make sure you're coming back, and to ensure you don't miss anything, subscribe to the show. Make sure you're leaving us a review as well. 5 stars is always what we would appreciate. Anything less than that, we would love to hear from you as to why you think it's not worthy of those 5 stars. But also, don't be selfish. Share the show. Share this episode with somebody that you feel could really benefit from this kind of content. In the meantime, guys, as always, best of luck with anything and everything that you've got going on in your world. And I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.